Welcome to Creators Cafe. I'm your host, Jessica Payne. I'm a performer, performance coach, and multi-hyphenate creator. I'm going to be bringing you conversations with some of my favorite creators where we talk about the sublime and the specifics of the creative journey. So grab a drink, get cozy. Let's go. My guest, Jerome Kurtenbach, is a writer, director, and composer. You might have seen him on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend or when he went on to work with Rachel Bloom again on Death Let Me Do My Show, which became a Netflix special. As a composer, he has written 4 musicals, including Broadway Crazy with Rachel Bloom, 2 symphonies, Westerly and Wanderlust, and an opera, Unleashed. As a director, Jerome has worked on the web series Someone Thomas, Mark, and Hope, which is on YouTube, and the psycho thrillers Ready or Not and the Misconception Trilogy, along with comedies Dümscrolt and Anything But Normal. Please enjoy my conversation with my friend, Jerome Kurtenbach. Welcome to Creators Cafe, Jerome Kurtenbach. And cheers.
Cheers.
Welcome. Cheers. Sweet. What are you drinking today?
Today I'm having, like most days, sparkling water.
Sparkling water, I love it. Yes. Sometimes I call it spicy water because I heard a little kid call it that once. I find it cute. I've got a iced latte from one of my favorite coffee shops on Dante over here by the Grove. So it's
nice.
Very good. It's good.
Lovely. Yeah. I already had my coffee for the day, so I was like, well, I gotta have water for the afternoon. So
fair enough. Yeah, totally. I'm one of those people that can drink it far later than I should be able to, and it's not a problem. Nice. We'll say it's good. We'll say it's good.
Nice for you. 3 o'clock is my cutoff time, but I try not to do more than one a day. So.
Oh, you're good.
I try. Some days that's not possible. So.
Yeah, totally. I just figured I'm going to be drinking the coffee. I might as well name my podcast after it.
There you go. Exactly.
Nice. Okay, so we have 2 connections. So we first really got to be friends at Brick, which is our CrossFit gym that we go to. But It turns out we both had a dark and sordid past of teaching at AMDA in Hollywood. I was in the acting faculty department and you were in the music side. So I know you both as very fit guy that I cross paths with at the gym, but also as a musician and as an artist. And then I got to learn about you as a director. So we're going to kind of cover a little bit of all of those pieces, but I'd love to hear just like, what's your background and what got you excited to really go down the composition path and the musician path, because you've been able to keep that going in a way that very few people who are trained in music can really find an exciting original career to the level and extent that you have. And you've done so well in so many different arenas. What did that look like getting started?
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is I started music when I was like a child. So music started that far back. So, unlike some who might have come in like college or whatever, I started so long ago with that. And ironically, I'm still in improv and I started improvising as a kid. So that was like my little like dabbling into music. And my parents were like, hey, we should probably like get him a piano or something. So they did. And then I just started like noodling on the piano and kind of just listening to music on the radio, 80s, and going home and trying to play the stuff that I heard. So that was like the really germination of like getting into what does it look like to play an instrument, much less create something on the instrument. So that was kind of the very initial spark. And then I, got into piano lessons and then I started playing at churches, which was my background. And then I decided, well, let's do this thing and do it for real and went into college. And first was going to be an educator, which I'm still teaching. I started teaching at age 14. And I dual majored for a while. And then I was like, I really want to do film scoring. How do I do that? And I became a composer first. So I studied composition and like classical composition and all the classical techniques from writing to orchestrating to performing, all of that from start to finish. And that's kind of the germination of at least the musical end. There's a lot of tangents that go around all of that from playing in band. Yes, I was in band as a kid and played brass instruments, percussion. I was an organist at the church, so I was playing multiple instruments all the time, handbells. I mean, you name it. There were just lots of things that I dabbled in. And so, yeah, I was working at the church actually before, like at age 16, I was already starting to work as a musician.
Oh, wow.
So being a musician has been part of my life for a very long time. So that's the germination of the creative side started in college. I should wait. Let me reframe that. I started orchestrating and I wrote my first works in high school. And I fell in love with orchestrating pretty quickly. So I was like, ooh, I like this. And then when I learned that I wanted to be a composer, I was like, oh, that includes orchestration. So that was really cool to be able to put those two worlds together. And orchestration is basically just coloring in the lines of, like, you hear something in your head. What instrument's going to be on instruments? And now in the modern era, what synthetic sounds are we going to put to that, or marry that with live instruments if that's possible, both budgetarily or in concept. But yeah, storytelling, it really started in college to really take shape and become its own thing where I was like, oh, I have a voice. I really want to say something with my music. And my biggest draw at that time was, how can I not write things that are 3/4 or 4/4? And for non-musicians, it's basically the meter that everything's written in for most songs that we hear in the world.
99%.
Which is not maybe even more than that.
Probably more. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that was a cool, like, if you look at that as a creator now, especially pertinent to what we're talking about, I was trying to creatively come up with solutions to how can I say something different than what has been said for centuries? Just because at that age, you want to find a voice. And my voice was like, I just want to try to kind of push outside the box. And because we're all people of the 20th century, and that's where a lot of composers really started to stretch the limits of what could be played, written, produced, because it wasn't just instruments anymore. There was like people using tapes and sound effects that were not musical instruments whatsoever. So you're like, how is that music? And so that storytelling really came to life there, and a lot of that wove into what would become my future as just a storyteller in general. So the compositional side, I did my undergrad and my master's in composition, and then I went to film scoring at USC, and that was where everything really started to just take shape. So in the storytelling world on the musical side. So that's hopefully that answered the question.
Absolutely.
In the shorthand version.
Absolutely. And if somebody's listening and they don't really know the difference between composition and orchestration, how would you describe that to a smart beginner that doesn't know?
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, they seem like they could be the same thing, but composition is, so for a layperson, it would be the written material. So like melodies and harmonies and rhythms. So those basic structures are the composition, right? Then composers and or orchestrators get to decide what instruments those melodies, harmonies, rhythms get to be played on or performed on. And it could be as simple as a piano. It could be as simple as a guitar. Or even if you're writing a drum solo, you're like, oh, I hear this drum thing and it's just on drums. Well, what drums? Is it going to be the drum set? That's where, if a composer is not an orchestrator, they might hand over the composition to an orchestrator to flesh out the literal notes that are going to get played. And that's where the orchestrator gets to flourish and make things come to life in a newer way than what the composition itself might represent. Yeah. So when you're thinking about orchestration, a lot of people think just orchestra, and yes, that's fair. But then it's as basic as like, oh, I have a piano and a bass and drums. Can we write something for that? Yeah. Great. Or can we orchestrate a pop song for those three instruments? Well, a lot of pop songs are now lots of things happening in a pop song. So how are we going to make that sound appropriate for the instruments that you've just listed? So that's where the orchestrator takes an already pre-existing composition and puts it in that world, which then you get into the world of what arranging is, and that's a whole other beast, but that would be a tangent. But to answer that direct question, I think that's the simplest way, is like composition is the piece, orchestration is what's the sound of the piece outside of just those key components. So
When you are orchestrating, since you have the background with the live instruments and with playing and with, especially it's cool that you have the idea of an organ, because the organ has lots of different modes with the different stops, and you can kind of bring in
yeah.
those different voices. So even since you were a teenager, you were really orchestrating when you're doing that in real life. Do you have any processes or programs that you love to work with? I like the nerdy, like kind of detailed stuff. What is your process for once you've got the melody, once you've got this composition exists? What are your next steps most of the time?
Good question, because the biggest thing I launch from is, first, is it a commission? Meaning, like, are you asked to orchestrate something, right?
Yep.
So you have to basically, the first question I ask is, what is the ensemble? So, and I mean, literally, it could be just piano and flute. Like, okay, we got two instruments. Yay, that's the ensemble. Oh, we just have a pianist and an organist. Like, I've had that before, where you have to, that's all we get. Those two instruments, doesn't matter what the piece is, orchestrate for it. So the process is first finding the instruments and then deciding what is going to flourish the most for both instruments and really make the music come to life the way it needs to on the instruments that are being asked for. If I don't have instruments that are being asked for, then it comes into what do I want it to sound like? And my mentor many years ago tuned me into listening to what I hear in my head, which sounds super jargony, but it's just like, well, or mumbo jumbo-y. But if you hear like a flute, then write it for flute, and then write what works on the flute. So if you hear the melody, like you said before, like where would it sit on the flute? Is it higher, lower? What flute is it? It's just the regular flute, the alto flute, the bass flute, the piccolo. What are you working with? And so the orchestration part of that and the element really comes to life when you start to hear in your head. And I try to hear the piece in my head if I don't have a brief to meet. But even with a brief, I really love, like, if they only give me 15 instruments total, out of 100 and whatever instruments that are typical for a orchestra, then I'm like, great. That's like a puzzle that you get to like piece together the story via the instruments that you're given. But even again, without those, you get to create a soundscape, a color, a tone, a mixture of sounds, much like you said about the organ. The organ is an instrument that is basically a big orchestra inside a box that has pipes.
Yeah.
And, even the digital ones mimic that. But I mean, the pipes are themselves sounding like other instruments, which many of them are called like oboe or flute, or there's strings or horns or on the actual instrument of the organ. So I always had a blast playing the organ because it was so much like orchestrating. And I think that's what really helps in the future. It helped me decide how to navigate mentally, like, where's the sound going to be? Where's it going to exist? Where's that melody going to sing the most? Proverbially sing. Obviously, if it was a voice, it would be that, literally. But you really, including, by the way, when you're writing for voice, it's the same concept. Where does it set well in the voice? Is the key the right key for the voice? Humans are instruments, whether we think so or not. We exist as an instrument because we have voices. So it's just that's the exciting part of orchestrating for me, outside of the compositional side. So once the composition's done, that's where things really come to life.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite instruments or combinations to orchestrate for?
My favorite instrument is the harp.
Oh, beautiful.
I've always liked the harp. Name drop. I've always loved John Williams, but we'll probably talk about him more. But his use of the harp, not only as an instrument in the orchestra or how it's used in the orchestra, but also when it's written for a solo instrument, whether it's a concerto or a film score. There's just so much diversity to what the instrument can do. It can be percussive, it can be angelic, it can be flourishing, it can be simple, it can be quiet, it can be resonant, it can be very just. There's so many different layers to it that people, I don't think, because they just hear this thing that, there's glisses, and yay, glisses are amazing. It's one of my favorite things. But also there's all these other things that it can do, including extended notation and extended techniques. And for those who may not know what that means, the things that you wouldn't expect the instrument to be able to do, those are extended techniques for any instrument. But it's just a way that it's an instrument that can be really, really compelling to hear besides just the normal things that we might think of the harp. And it's also an ancient instrument, so it's extremely old. It's one of the first instruments that we developed as a human species. And so it's really fascinating that it's lasted this long and become such a prevalent instrument in modern orchestras. And then the other instrument that I really, really enjoy listening to and writing for is cello, because it has such a diverse range, color, tone. There's a lot of things you can do on that instrument as well. So those two are really my favorites of the live instruments in the world. But I have others that are under that, but those are the two main ones.
Absolutely. And as a composer, so maybe John Williams might be an influence as well as somebody that you're, in the world of, but also, is there anybody else or other styles that you find yourself drawing inspiration from or bringing echoes of into your music?
I think in general, John Williams has always been like the North Star for me, just because when I decided as a young artist that I wanted to become a film composer, this was back in the 90s. So the audience needs to think too, this is before digital time. So this is when the trajectory was you had to go to college and learn how to write, and then you had to learn how to orchestrate. And then eventually you're going to have a live orchestra to perform these things. So that concept of how the germination of becoming a composer was because I listened to film scores. But fun fact, my dad had records which are here and they're in the box over here. I still have them. Of orchestra pieces that I heard as a child, from musical theater to actually classical and all of the repertoire, the major repertoire, Beethoven, the big ones, Mozart, all that stuff. I was listening to as a child. It didn't seep in, but now I know it was there, and even listening to things like the Looney Tunes and which had these famous orchestral works being used in their really funny and really fantastic cartoons that really just gave us as youth like an access to something that may or may not be there in your own family's experience, whether you're listening to a radio or whatever, or records or 8 tracks, wink. I'm not old, everybody. But I really do think that John was the North Star only because I realized I had grown up listening to his material. So Close Encounters, E.T., Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then when we got to Jurassic Park, I still call it still is, as silly as it is, it's the film that got me in LA today, still working, still having the passion.
Wow.
That film and that score was the first time I listened to the score and thought, oh, that's really cool. That's really awesome. Ooh, I really wanted, who is this? And then I didn't know that it was all these famous scores that I'd already been listening to. And I had the read along books of like Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I was like, I've been listening to these orchestral works for already a decade and a half by the time Jurassic Park came out. And I was just like, oh, okay. And then I didn't really think, I could become a film composer. I was like, oh, this is really cool. So I just delved into, purchased all the CDs I could get at the time and like really started listening to film scores and paying attention to film scores, whether they were his or not. Like I fell in love with Jerry Goldsmith and Alan Silvestri. And Alan is still writing today and working, and he's famous for Back to the Future, if anyone's curious of who that might be, but Back to the Future and Forrest Gump and The Avengers. So the Avengers theme is Alan Silvestri. And then Jerry Goldsmith was famous for like The Omen and Star Trek. And so I think of the classical composers, though, outside, because you asked who might be influenced or I bring in, there's a lot of, like I loved playing Beethoven as a pianist, and so I loved his orchestral works as well. Beethoven, a bit of Brahms, but then in the 20th century, I really, really enjoyed Stravinsky, Aaron Copland. I played George Gershwin, so I played like Rhapsody in Blue. It really spoke to me, so I learned it and I played it, and I really studied that material. I got the benefit of playing the piano, the trumpet, the horn, and percussion all in different performances of Rhapsody in Blue. So I really got an exposure to one piece in multiple modes on different instruments. So I really had a really kind of formative path to what my music could eventually become in the future today, because of all of those big, yes, they're big composers, but they really spoke to me because I always felt like, especially George Gershwin and John Williams, they really tell stories with their music. So you could not watch the film of John Williams's work and you could enjoy the music, which is why he was one of the most influential film composers to bring film music to the concert stage. And that's, I mean, they honor him at the Hollywood Bowl all the time and talk about like the reason why these performances are happening of other film composers now too is because he kind of led the way. You know, despite there being like Henry Mancini and all these huge composers from the first 100 years of film, that got some play in concerts, but he really brought them to the fore. But that really is what influenced me to just keep writing and keep finding my voice as a composer. And I think a little bit of all of them kind of fuse their way into what I write and what I am drawn to. But now that I've been doing it for so long, I really just like to make sure the music that I'm writing speaks to the story I'm trying to tell. So whether it's a piece that I'm writing outside of film, television, or stage, if it's just a private like a concert work that I'm writing, or if it's something that I am writing for a pitch or not just a pitch, but a brief that I need to meet for a project, I really want to make sure that the music that I'm writing and or orchestrating for is going to really do the best it can for the story and really speak to the story that it's trying to tell, no matter what that is. So
it's interesting to hear the influences that you had, especially, I would say, John Williams, Beethoven, and then also the 20th century. Like I hear the Stravinsky and the Gershwin and the Copland, because when I listen to your music, I hear that kind of classical training coming through, but also the you've got a cool. I hear the project that you did where you tried to avoid 4/4 and 3/4, and I feel when I listen to a lot of what your compositions do for me is I feel the storytelling and also feel this like sense of mystery and kind of taking us through something in an exploration, and that feels very 20th century, trying to like build on the greats but also push away from it into a kind of misty territory in some of your pieces. How do you feel like your voice has developed? What do you think about your compositions now, having a body of work?
And that's a really interesting question because I sit with that sometimes. Because if someone were to ask me, like yourself, what is your voice? What do you feel? I feel like I've built so many worlds out because writing things for the stage and for film and TV, and they're all so diverse.
Yeah.
And also having to learn, because I touched on it earlier, but having to incorporate digital and material that's not live instruments.
Yes.
I had to find what I enjoyed hearing, and just like instruments, I had to discover what works for me, because there's thousands of sounds that we can use now at our fingertips. And so I think that voice that I found for me is just like hopefully a clear story that you get no matter what the sound that I create is. So whether it's a melody or a rhythm or a harmony that might be, like you said, a little bit mysterious, I really think for me it's just storytelling. So I always continue to just push the story, whatever that is. And that's why if you look at my titles, they usually hopefully inspire what you're going to hear. Not influence, but inspire what you're hearing. Like I wrote a concert work that I got a live performance called Wanderlust, and I just wanted it to sound like you were on a journey, and have an excitement that anyone who has experienced Wanderlust. I don't personally have Wanderlust, but I have several friends who experience it. And for those who might wonder what that is, it's just people who always want to be traveling or always be moving about the world rather than being stagnant, and that can look like many different things. But the piece was meant to be almost like an overture, and something that just it has a lot of energy, a lot of color, and a lot of melodic tension also that spans the entire orchestra, and it really still harkens back to what's the story. And I just knew that title sparked a lot of inspiration for me. But hopefully, all of what I'm doing is story driven. It's rare that I just write only for an instrument or only for a group of instruments or for just a project. I really want there to be a sound or a color that I'm trying to convey or communicate with an audience orally. So
beautiful.
I don't know if that answered the question. That was maybe too rambling.
No. That's exactly what I was looking for, was just this kind of looking back retrospective of the things you've created. And I find it really personally interesting because I 100% have Wanderlust. I lived on the road for 4 years. I've been to 47 states and many, many countries. So I just think it's cool that you were able to write a whole work over something that isn't your personal experience, but you kind of empathize with people you care about and write something, through their experience. That's a really cool concept as well.
Well, and that piece actually inspired my second symphony. So I wrote a symphony about, I had the opportunity to travel the world several times, and those travels were like, what I really want to encapsulate this in a piece, and what can I do? So I wrote a multi-movement piece, and it really was, how do I encapsulate this journey? And I don't remember, it's like a 40 minute symphony. And a part of it was my own heritage and my own background, but I've also visited I'm Italian and German, so I've visited both countries. But how do I incorporate like all the islands I've been to and all the countries and all these things? And I just wanted a piece that kind of represented the whole picture, the whole world. And it was just really fun to write. I actually think I wrote that in the pandemic, which was ironic because we were all at home. So I was just reminiscing. I was like, let me use this time to reminisce and write a big orchestral work about it.
That's cool, because it's like, while you're doing it, you can't write about it necessarily, but that was a good time to kind of go internal and process it.
Yeah, exactly. And then it came out as an artistic piece. So, and then beautiful. A symphony. So, but yeah.
And so along with your own kind of, I would say, original creations, whether they are in partnership with somebody or a commission, but it's really like your work for this specific project. You've also done a lot of work with people on very public and fancy projects. So one of the ones that is dear to my heart is all of your work with Rachel Bloom, just as an actress who sings and is like always trying to like create something that I'm proud of out in the world. I love your partnership with her and everything you've done there. Can you talk about how that started? And you're in the New York Times because you were on Broadway leading her Broadway show. I mean, you've done incredible things. And I want to both brag about you, but also like hear from your side how that all happened.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's been a lovely collaboration, and we've known each other for I think 15 years now.
Yeah.
And it's just been so fun, and we've had so much fun together. I got in touch with her. We were working with another improv group called the Apple Sisters, and I've known them since I think 2008. And she came in to work with them, and then they put me in touch with her, and then we started working together pretty soon thereafter. I worked with her on a couple of her YouTube projects that she did prior to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and then worked with her on a musical, which we're still working on together, called Broadway Crazy. And then the show came about, and that was really fun and exciting. And I'm actually the only thing I'll be like, ooh, I'm the first image you see of that show. Episode 1, I'm the first face that comes up on screen, which I thought was really so crazy because I'm like, I'm not an actor anymore.
It's also funny because like I watched it, but I didn't know you at that point. So like I wouldn't have yelled at the TV, but now I would.
Yeah, I just think I think it's a little silly, only because I'm like, I did a job which was basically play the piano in a scene, and I loved it, and it was great. I'm so glad she brought me on, so very thankful for that. And but that project came to be, and then that show wrapped. We've still been working together ever since, and she then contacted me for a couple projects in between that and then what eventually became Death Let Me Do My Show, and then Death Let Me Do My Special. And Death Let Me Do My Show we had worked together on a couple songs that were for other projects, and then they became Death Let Me Do My Show. And I first put together some tracks for the live tour of it before it became the Off-Broadway show. So we collaborated on what those tracks would be so she could perform without an orchestra and just do it, on a tour. And then it went to Off-Broadway, and we went Off-Broadway, and we had 2 different runs of the Off-Broadway show in 2023, I think that was now. I can't believe that was that many years ago.
Yeah.
And then that became, we were fortunate enough that became a Netflix special, which we then had, she changed the name to Death Let Me Do My Special on Netflix. And then, we've worked on other projects, and we were on Netflix together for a short little a bit for Jane Fonda and, oh my gosh, I can't remember her name. Lily Tomlin. Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin had a special, and we got to do a little thing together. But even before that, we went to Montreal and performed a show together with a couple of things from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and a couple other numbers that we collaborated on before. But yeah, we've just had a really fruitful working relationship, friendship since 2010. So it's really always been fun and exciting to collaborate with her and do whatever we can together. So it's been fun.
In a collaboration like that, since you're both coming in as creatives, as improvisers, as experts in your part of it, does it happen that like she comes in with an idea and you explore it musically, or is it she comes in with a song and you arrange it, or how does that? I mean, I'm sure it changes piece to piece and project to project, but what kind of collaborations do you find yourself having in that world?
You're right. It does depend on the project. I mean, we've had everything from almost a fully realized song to I have an idea, here's a melody, and let's figure out what the accompaniment and all those things are going to be. And we've had so much variety in what that looks like. And then there's some that I've just done orchestration on. Like there was a piece that she wrote for one of her videos called oh gosh, I have to remember the title. It was in 2011. Is the realistic Disney princess song. That's not the official title.
Yeah.
But, and it was a cute, YouTube video, and basically we put that together, and then I orchestrated it, and it was a great, fun project to work on. It became animated, and then it was just fun and silly and ridiculous, and I love it.
Oh, I love it when that happens. And then you've got that. Yeah.
To your question directly, yeah, it's a variety of ways that things happen. So yeah, there's no one cookie cutter version of us working together. So.
Okay. And you've also done some cool collaborations. You got to co-write a song for Kristen Bell and the Simpsons. How did that come about? What was that process like for you?
Well, sadly, I never got to work with Kristen herself. This was during the pandemic, so it was I was brought on by a mutual friend of Rachel's, Jack Dolgen, and he and I collaborated together on some songs for a musical version a musical episode of The Simpsons. I think it was season 33, episode 1, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully that my memory works there. But it was just a fun experience because we were all at home and I did everything at home. And I got to do fun things on that, from helping write some of the songs, orchestrating. I got to add some of my vocals to things. And then when it came time for the episode, I found out Kristen Bell was singing one of the songs. So I was like, win.
How cool is that?
But I love the idea that it was Kristen Bell and the cast of, I grew up watching The Simpsons. So being a part of that journey has been fantastic, and being able to work on that show just even for an episode was a fantastic experience. So I'm glad he asked me to join in the collaboration. So
absolutely. And what about you've done so many like short films and compositions and pieces throughout your career. What are some highlights that stand out to you, or projects that you're really proud of with that?
I mean, you're right. When you do it for this long, it's like, what stands out the most of all the things you've done? I mean, I'm really, really proud of the work on Crazy X. Working on those songs were so much fun. I am really proud of I finally, composers don't always get the opportunity to write symphonies and whatnot, but I set a goal for myself to write symphonies. So I got two out. I do want to write a third at some point. But then I'm really, really just, what I'm most proud of now is that I've been able to put my work into, things that I'm also writing and directing. So that's where I'm really, really excited to be able to bring to the table things I've done for the last 20 years to put together, or more than 20 years, but just to really be able to tell these stories in ways that I finally have the opportunity to do. And, the other things I'm, most proud of, or anything that really, I was commissioned to write a piece, again, weirdly during the pandemic, but it was the latter end of the pandemic, and I got commissioned to write a piece called Life. Oh my gosh, I have to remember my own title. Life-Giving Waters. And it was a piece about, the ocean and what it means and what it represents for the world, and, how to be good stewards of the ocean as a human species. And I was honored to be able to write not only the piece, but the lyrics too. So the lyrics and the music and the orchestration were all from me, and that was really exciting, an opportunity to do. And my friend and colleague in Dallas had commissioned me to write that piece for his chorus and small ensemble. So it was a really, really fantastic work to be able to put together and have premiered there. And yeah, so anything that also just speaks to, our humanity and kind of who we are, in this world now, and finding ways to tell those stories, whether it is through film or stage or whatever. But yeah, and being able to do that as much as possible is the cherry on the, cake or whatever confection you want to put it on.
Yep, all of them. And now you're getting to do this from the directing side as well, and bring that side of the storytelling to the forefront with Someone, Thomas, Mark, and Hope. So can you talk about that project?
Yeah, so it's always interesting how everything comes together for all of us as creatives. But I have to back up before we get to Someone, Thomas, Mark, and Hope. So before Someone, Thomas, Mark, and Hope, in college, it's that long ago now, I was tasked with, well, how are you going to write a film score when there isn't a film to write for?
Oh, okay.
As a composer.
Sure.
So I was talking to my mentor at the time, and I was like, well, what do you think I should do? And he was like, well, just why don't you make something? And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means in the year 2000 in the middle of the country. And what do I do with that? Okay. So just as I still do today, I was like, okay, I'm just going to make this work, and I'm going to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
And so I literally wrote and directed my own film that I could score to. And my idea was, at that time, before I really, really got into writing and directing more, was, well, it's really for the score, so let me write a silent film. So I wrote a silent film, filmed a silent film. We shot it over a day. I pulled in some actor friends and colleagues, and had people help me from different walks of life that I was at the time around. And I was just really determined to figure out, okay, how do you make a movie?
Yeah,
with no budget and
no budget in one day.
No information on how that happens, except for maybe what you've seen on TV, literally like the behind the scenes, whatever. So I wrote the script. I wrote like a shooting schedule. A shooting schedule before I knew what a shooting schedule. This is pre-internet. Well, it's right at the beginning of the internet, so there weren't like tutorials and any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So literally no tutorials. That's for sure. There was no YouTube. Yep. But I literally was just like, okay, cool. I'm writing a script. I'll put this together, and what came out was like a 30-minute short film that was no dialogue, and it was. Still to this day, what I really, really enjoy writing. It was a psycho thriller, and which is a component of Someone Thomas Mark and Hope. But I wrote that film and then I scored it without any knowledge of how to do film scoring yet. This is the first film score I wrote. And I used a live orchestra, like literally pulled in my friends from orchestra and band and all those things in college, conducted them, did the whole thing because I love conducting. Conducting is one of my other favorite pastimes that not many of us get to do because there's not many live orchestras for film and TV. But so I made this project and then I made a couple more after that and just really got my feet wet in writing, screenwriting, and then directing as well. And I just had a really, really great time doing it. And then I moved here and shifted gears and just did composition for film scoring and really just delved into the musical world. And at the time, the messaging to all of us as creatives was just focus on one thing. But then, you know, I just really got inspired by people like Rachel Bloom and others who were wearing multiple hats. I was like, well, I want to wear my multiple hats. Why can't I wear my multiple hats? And the biggest message to anyone listening is like, wear the hats that you have and keep wearing them as long as you have the passion and drive, because that's how I got into Someone Thomas Mark and Hope, which now we're on that, which is a series that I pitched to my friend Alfonso, who you know as well from our gym, Alfonso Chavez, and he came to me and was like, hey, I want to really work on my social media platforms and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, well, what if we just make stuff for your social media platforms? Because I'm not very social media savvy and or friendly, not meaning that I don't. If you like social media, great, amazing for you. I have anxiety around it. So, and I even wrote that into one of the characters, Mark, who has anxiety about social media and posting on social and whatnot. And so I pitched him this idea of like, well, what if, you know, you want to build your acting portfolio and let's put together a show. Let's put a series together. And he had no idea what that would look like. And we met in October of 2023, and we started filming in January 2024. And then we're in season 2 and well over 60 episodes in. And I pitched him this anthology based on 4 different genres. So comedy, drama, psychothriller, and action adventure. And the hardest part after the pitch was like, well, how do we make an action adventure with zero budget? Like, how do you, I know you probably know as a director, but making action or anything related to high speed, whatever, it doesn't have to be a car chase. It could be running. It could be those elements to making that happen on film are extensive and challenging when you have budget, much less don't have budget. So because you have not only the cameras, the rigging, how do you do this logically and you know, within the constraints that you have. So I pitched the idea of, well, what if it's an adventure of the mind and an action adventure of a character figuring themselves out in a different way. So that's how we got around that. Still being an action adventure because it's kind of timey-wimey, twisty, turny, Back to the Future-y. But it's a character going through that journey. But then I just basically said, and you're going to be the actor for all these characters and you get to inhabit everyone. And then it came to life and we've been running ever since. And then we put it on YouTube and we're full steam ahead and we still release every Monday at 9:00 in the morning.
I was just going to say, I watched today's. Yeah, absolutely.
There's the plug. But no, it's literally like, it's so fun to do. It's so great because, you know, it's a vehicle for him, but also like the No Hope storyline, which is the comedy, is about a Mexican-American family. So he gets to tell those stories and then I just screenwrite for it, which I love because I'm so happy to be able to bring that story to life. But all of this is, you know, I just love the idea. Everything I figured this out, you know, when I moved to LA that I'm a storyteller, but I didn't know what that was going to look like at the, you know, in its fruition. And now it's finally blossoming into what I feel is more authentic to who I've been the whole time, but haven't been able to show. And so I love being able to tell stories from the beginning, which is the actual writing of the story, to the production of the story as a director and a producer, and then really having the ability to score it at the end in the post-production is really exciting to be at literal beginning and the literal end of any project that is going to be put to picture.
Yes.
So that's really exciting for me to be able to have that kind of journey. And some people are like, well, how does that work? You're a writer, director, and a composer. I'm like, well, I feel like they're all just storytelling. So they're all versions of a story, and stories in different parts of their journey. So that's what I love about it. And writing has become so joyous for me because I write, 8 episodes. We film 8 episodes in a day.
Wow.
And I write 8 episodes usually right after we film. So we just filmed last Wednesday our October and November episodes, and I'm about to write 8 more episodes for December and January. So I'm constantly writing in multiple mediums, whether it's word or music, and I'm constantly flexing those muscles, putting together. We're rehearsing all the time, so really figuring out how to work with the actor. Not just Alfonso, anyone I work with. I love working with actors. It's so fun to put together stories through characters and really develop their voice too as an actor and figure out what's going to be best for the story. But it's been really fun with Alfonso's project.
It's cool too because you have the concept is because you have these 4 different genres and there's different characters and sometimes he's multiple characters and it's so there's so many things going on, but because he's the continuing face of it and you're the continuing voice of it, there's also this underlying unity that pulls it together and lets you get away with more variety than I think normally would make sense.
Yeah, and to that end, I love the idea that I also keep track of where the stories are, so I get to either develop a character or if a character takes a back step, because we know characters sometimes fall back into old habits or whatever that looks like. And, we also wanted to tell a story from a Gen X perspective, not because it's for Gen X, it's from a Gen X perspective. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
But Gen X is kind of the new forgotten generation. If you're a Gen Xer out there, I don't know if you feel this, but we do, as both Gen X people involved in the series. And we just hope it speaks to everybody because I think the stories of Fourth Wall, the character of Thomas, he's really going through modern day. Like not everyone's going through modern day. Nothing's set in a different time except for sort of Mark, but that's kind of tangential time. And we really wanted that story to speak to people on what's going on today. We don't get super hyper political, but we do talk about things that affect everybody.
It's more like current events than political. It is like what people in the world are going through, though.
Correct. So whether it's like student loans or finances or health or family or friends, I'm sure there's a lot of people who will listen to this or watch it who know what it's like to, as you're aging, what it's like to keep, maintain, procure new friends. And, outside of your familial ties or whatever your existence with your family looks like, building those connections with people is a challenge. And Thomas is a great window into that experience of what it looks like for someone in their mid 40s in this time in 2025. And what they're going through and what their mental state is. And, he's a therapist. If you haven't watched, spoiler alert, he's a therapist. But season 1, we didn't know he was a therapist, but season 2, we do know. And he was in therapy in season 1, and now he's kind of living out some of those experiences in season 2, which I hope is what other people get from it as well, that they can see a little bit of themselves in the colors that are being shown. And then showing also, we wanted to, well, at least for me, I really wanted to show a healthy, modern relationship with him and his partner, Koa, which is a newer character, which is played by Todd Lien, a fellow friend and actor of mine. And then we also have Esmeralda, she's in the Mark storyline. And she does voiceover for Esmeralda, his best friend, Mark's best friend. But then I really also wanted a story that was a psycho thriller that really delved into something extreme, which, by the way, is the most watched of the 4, is the Someone. The character's name is Someone. It's an unnamed character. and probably will never get named because it needs to speak to. There's a lot of psychosis going on with the character, but also just hopefully some people see themselves whether they had these traumas that this person's gone through. But it's it's a story that's delving into some of the stages of grief, and like this season's the stage like of anger. So this whole season's delving into what anger looks like for this character, and denial was the first season. So I just feel like there's a way for people to navigate even through this story that is, very sometimes difficult to watch, scary to some people, unsettling, that they kind of see, what it's like to cope and deal with some of these things in the modern era, which is not unlike all the four characters going through. But I should say there's more than four characters, but the four storylines going on.
Yeah.
I think it's a way for people to hopefully see themselves and, also be entertained.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they have such a different. I like that you really do explore these different genres too, and that they're very striking and different visually and tone wise and feel, even though it's the same creative team. It's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. My goal is
go ahead. No, go.
No, I just think that was the goal of mine. That directorially, I really wanted to make sure they each had their own independent look and voice.
Yeah.
And just so everyone knows, we still don't have huge budgets, so we were working under like shoestring budget to make this happen. But we really wanted to focus on, we can still tell these stories without a budget. You don't have to have thousands of dollars to tell what I think are at least true human stories that are, some of them might feel a little far-fetched here and there, but his Mexican American family, that he's the story that he's telling, I have some versions of that in my own family with my mother who was Italian. And so there's a lot of overlap, but it doesn't have to be just Italians and Mexicans. It can be anyone who you feel like, oh yeah, that's my mom. Oh yeah, my mom does that. Or yeah, my dad does that. He sits on the couch or does this, or whatever these characters are going through. Hopefully you see a version of that either in your life or can relate to it in some way. So that, and then they all have their own little unique look and shine to it that hopefully people relate to. So
yeah. I was just going to say, I really appreciate that you have done so many things in your career. And a lot of times people will get to a certain point, and I mean, you could very easily just say, I was on Netflix. I wrote for The Simpsons. I have symphonies, and just sit back and wait for the phone to ring. But instead, you're doing so much work, and you've greenlit yourself into creating things that you're passionate about with people you want to create with. And I just have so much admiration and respect for that you're just out there doing it and doing what you want to be doing and not waiting for anybody else to call. You're just doing the thing that you're passionate about. And I think we all give like a little bit of lip service to that idea. But you're somebody that's also like achieved such incredible things, and you're still out there like doing it. And I saw the one you released today. And I think that combination is really powerful and something to admire.
Well, thank you. My husband always asks me, he's like, well, what would you do? Or is there anything else that, would excite you if you ever left the industry? Because I'm not young, and at 40, I had that time of like, whoa, should I stay? What am I doing? What's going on? And, you have the proverbial midlife crisis. And I came back to the thing I said earlier in our conversation, that I'm a storyteller, and I had to figure out what that storytelling looked like. And it never goes away from me. So I always I have stories, or I have ideas, or I want to keep telling stories, whether I'm being hired or not is kind of. And by the way, you can hire me all the time, people, please.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
I need to make a living too. But all that said, it's not just, because a lot of people think it's a hobby when you don't get paid. And I think there's too many of us who know that you have to keep doing the things, even if you're not getting paid, in order to get seen, heard, understood, all the things, whether you like to think it's happening or not. People aren't getting to do the thing they want to do. They aren't getting to have their voice heard, their creativity come out. And so, to your point, a lot of people do have to self-produce, fulfill whatever that is, and not wait for any studio, any micro studio, anybody to tell them it's okay to go and do this, or any mentor to say, oh, you shouldn't do these things. Like, I think there's an idea of like, just once you have the momentum and the drive and the passion, just keep going. And I've watched a lot of actors over the years, a lot of producers and directors, you know, talk back to whatever talk show or whatever. And I think the biggest message I've heard and gleaned from all of them is like, if you have the passion, just keep going. It isn't about your family telling you should do it, your friends telling you should do it. It's your own personal passion. If you can ride that wave, as long as it's there, keep going. Because you never know when things are going to happen. They're not going to happen, when they're going to pop, when they're not going to pop, when people are going to like it, not going to like it. You can't control those things. So what you can control is what you do, and you keep. And that's what I've tried to do, is keep doing, and doing it as smartly as I can. So it's not just wasting time or just you know, twiddling your thumbs hoping things are going to happen. It's like, no, I'm trying to make inroads to have these stories told, whatever they look like, whether it's written, directed, or music put to them. So that's where my brain keeps going, which is why I keep doing what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Okay, and with that, what is the creator's challenge that you have for my audience that they can do from their own perspective to create something in the world?
Well, I think I dreamed up the idea of like writing your own verse. Like if you were writing a verse to a song, well, that's on the musical side of mine. I do think it might be a little bit challenging for people to just write a story, because that's vague. And I know if someone just said write a story to me, I'd be like, I don't know what you mean. That's going to be hard. Give me some specifics about that story.
That makes me think of you know, you saying the difference between like 15 instruments or all the instruments in the world. Like it's a cool challenge when you know that the parameters are limited.
Yeah.
Then you can get more creative.
Yeah, I would say the reason why I think writing a verse to a song, not a song, just a verse.
Yeah.
Because I teach songwriting still to this day, and the biggest challenge for people is they forget that even in song, you're storytelling, right? They think it's about the rhyming or the this or the that or the rules of the music. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of rules and a lot of parameters. Use them instead of fight them. So always think that those rules have been there, and by the way, they've been there for like 400 or more years. Like, we've been listening to the same kind of song in multiple arenas around the globe for centuries.
Yeah.
If not longer. So it's something that's so old to the human experience, you know, whether it's a nursery rhyme, those are songs too. They're stories.
Yeah.
They might seem silly, but that's why it's my challenge, is to just write like a verse of a song. If you rhyme, great. If you don't, great. You know, and clue, most of them are like 4 lines. That's kind of what happens in music. So that's the only rule I would say stick to. Yes, you can pull up lyrics and find so many lines that I'm like, that's fair. But give yourself that tool of like, just limit yourself to 4 lines. Write a good 4 lines. And it makes you think, well, what can I say in 4 lines? It really tightens your story. Because even thinking your favorite pop song, it's very short.
Yeah.
The story that is being told. Yeah. You're getting the story because the music is telling you something, or the visuals are telling you something. I mean, look at what Sabrina Carpenter just released a new video. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and I was like, it's a beautiful like storytelling video. It's like old school like thriller meets Rocky Horror Picture, and it's a beautiful way to tell a pop song story. But again, if you look at the lyrics, there's not a lot of story in the story. It's all the things that make the story happen. But you too can just write a verse, and that could be the spark of a song. You could even think, oh, is that something I want to tell in a different genre or a different medium? You can launch from that. It does not mean you have to go write the music for the song.
Yeah, and a lot of times and because even they could write the 4 lines, and then that inspires something else, and then they could pay you to write the music and arrange it.
I mean, yes, though that is not the challenge. But I appreciate that.
But I like the idea of like, it doesn't have to be your traditional medium to get a creative benefit from trying it. Yeah.
And song, you know, a lot of people who are like writers want to write a song, and I'm like, well, just tell a story. Like, you just have to figure out how to whittle it down to the syntax and kind of parameters that songs are, but otherwise you're just using some of the same skills.
Yeah.
And I always try to encourage songwriters to not worry about what this music is first. Like, worry about the story. Tell the story.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
figure the music will come together. It really
Yeah.
will. Like, music will, when you have a great story, the music will just start to sing on its own. You're like, oh, cool. Yeah, this lyric looks like it would be great in this kind of song. You
Okay.
know? So that's the other thing where you're like, yeah, once that lyric is there and it's really what you want to say, you could really create a song out of it. But yeah.
Perfect. So where can people follow you and find you? And if they want to work with you, where is the best place for them to track you down?
I am the old school. So I got two things. You got my website and you basically got anything else that you see me on, which is barely like Instagram and Facebook.
Yep.
But my husband posts mostly to Instagram for me. So I think
Well, you have
best
a
place is,
wonderful website, so I think that's
thank you.
it's a beautiful landing spot that shows off all the things that you do in a well unified way. And if anybody wears all the hats and is looking for a nice way to present it, I think yours is an excellent example of that.
Oh, well, thank you. And it's constantly changing and developing.
Yeah, of course.
I as I get more and more directorial projects and any writing projects, it'll continue to blossom into more of a holistic. Right now, it's composition heavy, but that's where I spent many years working. So,
Yeah.
But it is my landing space, and where if you need to get in contact, I mean, you can always email me, but that's very easy to do. And you can find that, I'm sure, by Googling me. But yeah, I think the website is the my landing page for most people. So
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. And cheers.
Cheers. Oh, look, I still have water.
Oh, yeah. Cheers. Join the community and share your creative challenges on Instagram and Facebook at Creators Cafe by Kika Labs. And also check out my website, kikalabs.com, KIKALABS.com, to sign up for the mailing list so you always know when a new podcast is released, and to check out my coaching and digital courses to help you be a more confident and joyful creator.